Hey, what's up YouTube? Welcome back to my second recap video. I wanted to do one for round 2, but I didn't end up shooting enough footage. Had a crash in my first race and decided, I'm just not gonna take any more footage this weekend. If you are interested in that video, it is on my channel, so I'll put a link to that in the video. And then I missed round 3, so I wasn't able to take any footage. I did end up doing JP43 though, a couple days before round 3. And then I left for out of town. And that one I got a new PR of 155.9. Also a video, I'll put that in the description. Yeah, so as usual, if you were in any of my races, the amateur, middleweight class, Supersport, or Formula, I have links to all the raw footage that I took in the description, so you're more than welcome to download it. If you want the 4K files, send me a message, I can give them to you directly. So yeah, basically kind of the same format as last time. We'll get right into the footage. I'll give a small talk about it afterwards, and yeah, enjoy. So here we are coming down the main straights, and I think I brake a little too early here. I'm supposed to run this 16 a lot deeper than I do, but that's okay. I think I get a good drive out of here. Do 15, pretty okay, a little bit of a missed apex, but not too bad. Good exit on 14. Now, I've been experimenting with a few different lines going into the bowl counterclockwise. I see a lot of guys don't run the curbing as tight as I do on the entry, and it kind of changes how far and when you roll up the bowl. But that one has been working for me so far. Now this straightaway is probably my hardest, my biggest challenge going counterclockwise is just, I feel like I always overslow this corner, and then 10, 9, 8 is always also a little bit difficult because you have to nail 10 to get 9 correct, and then if you don't get 9 correct, then you lose your drive for 8, which is super important. A little bit of a missed apex for 6, I'm sorry, 5. Lots of clear track here. So 156.4. Not too bad. I think at that time it gets me in 7th or 8th in qualifying. So here we are starting qualifying session 2, and I wanted to get up in front so I can get clear track, but I stalled the bike, and I'm so pissed, and I feel like I'm going to have to go through a lot of traffic, and it's going to totally screw up my qualifying session. Well, it turns out that that actually wasn't the case. I got a much better time in qualifying 2. And it's interesting, if you actually start at the back of the pack, what tends to happen is that the guys up in front will start separating from the guys in the back. So if you make a few passes in the beginning, like I do coming up here, I ended up actually having mostly clear track for my entire qualifying session once I got past the back end of the traffic. So try and make a pass up 10. And another pass going into 7. At this point, I'm ready to start my hot lap. And this lap actually is the fastest lap of the session, and I think it was my last lap of the session, and by this point I had just about completely clear track. So I do a little bit better, braking deeper into 16. Definitely better than the first session. Still need to use most of the track there on the exit. And I always seem to blow 15 for some reason, but not too bad. Another close to the curbing entrance in the bowl, running it really deep this time. And this time I am making a very conscious effort to brake deeper into 10. That radius a little tighter on 9. So 7 I can never seem to get right, although it seems to work for me for this qualifying lap. But I know I need to run that line tighter. It's like I completely blow turn 5. Coming up on these two guys here. I'm a little bit worried that this might impede my lap, but they're running a pretty decent pace, so it turns out it doesn't get in my way. And that is my first 54 at Chuckwalla ever. And on counterclockwise, that is about 3 seconds faster than my last PR in round 2. So for race 5, the amateur Formula middleweight class, that 154.9 puts me on the second row. And this is my fastest time at Chuckwalla ever, but amateur middleweight is a very competitive class, still only good enough for the second row here. So about to start the race, and I get probably my best race start I've ever had at Chuckwalla. And I'm hanging on behind Tim and Pierce here. And surprisingly, I'm able to hold this third position for quite a while. I'd say at least a couple laps. But after the first few corners, I can tell that these guys have pace that I just don't have yet. So I'm trying to hang on to them. I'm trying to follow their lines. But they start eventually gaining a lot of time between me, especially coming out of the bowl here and down into 10. I think I kind of mess up the slide a bit and lose a lot of drive coming out onto the straight, which starts to really make a gap here. So again, trying my hardest to break deep into 10, but kind of botch it a little bit. I go a little too deep. I'm not able to hold the radius going into 10, which again screws up 9 and then screws up 8. And as you can see, there's more and more time that's just piling up between me and these two guys in front. So meanwhile, I think I'm doing okay. I forget what the time is for this incoming lap. I think it's something like a 1:57 because of the race start. But meanwhile, the race behind me, I'm not really putting a whole lot of time between these guys. They are pretty much holding on to me for most of the race, and eventually they end up passing me. But in my head at this point, I'm thinking I'm doing pretty good. Like, I know I'm not going to catch Tim and Pierce, but you know, at least I'll have a pretty good race, and if I can hold this, maybe I'll get a podium. So yeah, the first lap comes in and it's a 1:57.6. Get a good deep turn into 16. Sets me up nicely for 15. And it actually kind of looks like that I'm putting a little bit of distance between. I think it's Evan and Max behind Evan. So I still can't tell if that's the correct line for 10, but for sure it's the wrong line for 9 and 8. As you can see, I'm way wide coming out of 9, and as a result I have to turn in really hard for 8, and it causes me to lose my drive, and now I have number 58 behind me. I'm pretty sure at this point I can hear his bike, so I can tell that I made a mistake going up 10.98. But looks like I'm able to hold him at bay. And that is a new personal best at Chuck Walla, a 154.6. But as I mentioned before, amateur middleweight is getting extremely competitive, and that 154 is just not good enough to keep number 58 off of me. So a little bit better turnout out of 9, but as you can tell, I'm always losing drive here, and this is where 58 decides to make a pass. And I could hear his bike for, the past minute. So now 58 is gaining a lot of time on me, and the truth about the CVMA experience for me, and I mentioned this in my first recap video, is that, man, I tend to get really tired, and when I saw those cross legs come out, the first thing in my head was, are you kidding me? I gotta do 3 more laps of this? So I think that's a cardio problem. Maybe a little bit better on the diet, but at this point I'm on lap 4 and I am getting tired, and I don't know this yet, but looks like I think Evan is behind me and he starts gaining time on me. I can tell that I'm starting to slow down. That last lap was a 55, and I think the next one I believe is a 55 as well, but I am really starting to put a lot of effort into maintaining these 55s. And as you can see, I think Evan gets a good amount of time on me from probably executing the break into 10 a lot better than me. But it looks like I'm still holding it down here. And now Evan is really trying to line up a pass And a lot of the times I'll get this issue going into 6 where I'll hit the rev limiter a little too early. And I've been trying to figure out what to do there. Should I short shift up and then, you know, ride it through from 6 to 5, or should I just stay at the rev limiter? I've been kind of experimenting with that, but it looks like I'm able to get a little bit of a you know, better drive coming into 3, 2, 1. But it's not enough to hold off Evan entirely, so looks like he's getting ready to make a pass here. So yeah, it looks like I came back to the second apex of the bowl a little too early, and that kind of screws up my drive going into the slide, and Evan takes full advantage of that. And at this point, I am getting very tired. I can see that I'm losing positions, and I'm starting to lose the will to fight for definitely not a podium position, as 58 is long gone at this point, but now I'm just trying to stay alive through the rest of the race. As you can see, Evan is gaining a lot of time on me here. And the rest of the pack is starting to catch up to me. So now Max Kaiser is coming up on me. And I actually got to speak with this guy after the race, and I know he has really, really good pace for the most part, so I was very interested to know why he was kind of back in the pack there and not fighting up with the top guys. But my 56 is showing that I'm definitely getting slower throughout the race, and pretty soon here he's going to make a pass as well. So it looks like I'm able to hold okay through the slide, but probably not on 10. Let's see. Yeah, so it's the same problem that I've been having is I need to hold a radius on 9 a lot longer than I am, because then I have to make this big shift in body movement for getting over on the left on 8, and that is just causing me to lose so much drive down that straight. So Max goes right on through. I think behind me now is Morgana and Chris, but this is the last lap. And totally below 3, and I lose one more position right on the final corners to the last lap. But at least I'm able to hold off Chris. And the slowest lap of the race, I'm so tired at this point, but 6th position, you know, I'm happy with that. I've been getting 5th and 6th position in amateur formula a lot. I managed to snag 1 podium position, and I got a 3rd place in round 2. So I'm still getting decent points in the championship, but you know, it's the same takeaway that I had from the last couple rounds, is that I just need to work on my cardio, my endurance, and not get so tired mid-race. As you can see, I get fast by lap 2, hold it for a couple laps, and then all of a sudden I start getting slower. So for race 10, amateur Supersport middleweight, my 154.9 gets me a spot for the first time ever on the front row. So hopefully I'm able to take advantage of this. So here we are rolling out of pit lane, and I start this footage from pit lane because on the warm-up lap, somebody crashes going up the slide. And I'm actually not sure who it is. I catch a brief glimpse going by turn 11, but not able to make out the bike, and then the red flags come out. So that gets cleared up about 10 minutes later, and we're ready to race. So get off the line okay, not as good as my first race, but I'm in fourth, and I think I'm able to hold on to fourth for a little bit, but I am running on the same tire that I used for race 1, and I went through that tire a lot more than I normally go through tires in the previous rounds. Probably has something to do with my pace. But yeah, it looks like I'm doing okay. So finally a decent turn out of 9, although still needs to be a little bit tighter, but you can see I don't lose nearly as much time as I've been losing before. And finally hit 7 correctly, which gives me a pretty decent drive coming out of 6. But it's not really enough. As you can see, Evan, Tim, and Pierce are kind of pulling away. And I've got the rest of the pack behind me, and I'm not making any time between them. So my first lap comes in at 2 minutes, which at this point is pretty slow for me. I know it is the first lap, but my first lap on the last race was a 1:57, so clearly I'm suffering the effects of 1, being tired, and 2, having a little less tire to work with. But ultimately, definitely slower. But still seem to be holding the guys behind me at bay. Another decent drive coming out of 8, so it looks like I'm getting better here. That looks like Chris making a pass on, I believe, Mardana. So low 156 for lap 2, which is not bad for me. Definitely not as fast as the first race, and definitely not as fast as the pack behind me. It kind of looks like I'm starting to slow up traffic here. Still doing good into the entry for 10, although 9 and 8 still seem to be a problem for me. So lap 3 comes in at a 157. As usual, I am getting tired. I am getting slower. Still seem to be holding off the traffic behind me, but probably not for long. So at this point, I have 2 guys passing me, and I forget if it's on this lap or the next lap, but I start to notice a really sharp drop in grip on the rear. And as you'll see later in this video, it turns out I blew a coolant hose, which was causing water to fill up in my belly pan and was coming out onto the rear tire, making me slip and slide all over the place. So it must be on this lap where I start to notice the issue with the rear, because I'm still putting out 57s. But somewhere in lap 4 or lap 5, I make a conscious decision to slow down because of the grip issues. Yeah, so it's right now where I can tell that there's something definitely wrong. I'm starting to let everybody go around me, and at this point I kind of just want to finish the race without crashing. And I remember thinking in my head here, just in total shock and surprise that I managed to chew up all of the right side of the tire, or the left side of the tire that is, so quickly. And I've never really done that before. But at this point my dash was not showing any lights, so I I thought it was really just a grip issue on the rear tire, but I know something's wrong. I can't hold the corners nearly as I could before, so again, I'm just letting everybody go by. You can probably tell from the rear view of my camera that my bike shoots out a little bit of white smoke, or probably what is steam from the coolant hose. And I remember coming down into 3 here, getting ready to brake for 3 and getting a huge slide and shake from the rear and thinking I was almost going to high side. And at this point I do see the red light on my dash, which at first I thought it was an oil light. And again, I still didn't connect the dots here on what was happening with the bike, but at this point I need to pull off track. Something is wrong. And so I'm slowing down, put my leg out, which probably shouldn't be on the racing line, but I was hoping that I could get a clean exit here off of 16. And I pull off track, look at the belly pan, and see that it is full of water. And that sums up the DNF for race 10. So there it is, that was CVMA round 4. And only 2 races this time. If you were there, you know that Sunday got canceled for rain. We woke up Sunday morning, ground was wet, looked like it had rained earlier that morning, and we thought that maybe we might have a chance to ride. CVMA officials thought the same thing, so they had a bunch of cars go out on the track to dry the track off. And it looked like we were making some progress. But then 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock rolled around and it started raining again. So they ended up canceling Sunday. But that's okay. You get DNS credits if you don't start the race that you signed up for. So that'll be used for next round. And overall, it was a good weekend. Super happy with the PBs that I got, especially going counterclockwise. It's a particularly challenging direction for me. But breaking into the 54s, huge deal. Problem though, the rest of amateur middleweight is getting super fast. And I made this point in my first recap video, which was you don't really have to be super fast to race CVMA and have a battle with someone. That I feel like is maybe was true for round 1, but not for round 4, not for round 3. Pretty much half the pack now, or more than half the pack, is under 2 minutes, and of the guys who are under 2 minutes, I would say more than half of them are in the mid-50s right now, and the top guys are getting very close to getting into the 40s. So with that being said, if you do want to race CVMA and you want to jump in mid-season, it will be tough if you are not sub 2. If you are not sub 2, but you're close to sub 2, it'll still be tough, because even looks like the 23rd guy is running a 2:04 for amateur middleweight. So yeah, it's take that for what it's worth. It's still fun to race without a doubt, but round 1 was a lot more forgiving than round 3, round 4. So as far as championship stuff goes, this 6th place in the Formula Middleweight Championship is put me in 5th for the championship now, which is pretty good. And then unfortunately my second DNF in the Supersport Championship has pretty much taken me out of competition altogether. So anyways, better luck for round 5. Hopefully we'll get 2 days of racing. The weather looks to be potentially some rain. We'll see. Thank you to James and Philip for being an excellent pit crew, pit neighbors, and thank you to Xenia and Elisa for coming out to support. Great seeing everybody, all the CVMA racers, and hope to see you round 5.